Hello, and welcome to Vox Solaris. I'm Solaris, and this week we're joined by the hostess of the Chono Tea House, Zephyr Chono. Hi there.
Hello.
How are you doing this evening? Well, I guess for you it's actually mid-afternoon. So how are you doing?
Mid-afternoon on Sunday, but I'm good. Chill, relaxing. Sad that tomorrow is Monday.
yet another work week. Terrible. When will we just become giant streamers and be able to stream all the time?
Right?
So for those that unfortunately don't know who we are yet, how would you kind of describe your content and yourself?
I guess the best way to describe it, if I was Shrek, no wait, Donkey from Shrek, I would describe it as a cake or onion, in that I am wholesome and there's a dash of degeneracy, but it's all buried like underneath me being shy.
So the outer layer is shy, and then there's like wholesome underneath that, and then the very gooey center we get like degeneracy. Is that kind of what you're going for?
Yes, and a sweat when it comes to certain games. Yes.
Ah, yes, that's true. I haven't seen Saltfy in a while. Then again, I did miss the Apex this most recent stream, so I didn't see if Saltfy came out then. But I am kind of the same way in competitive games. That's kind of why I tend to avoid them on stream because I don't want to be pissed off at people.
Okay, that's fair.
So I do still play Rocket League from time to time. Anyway, what games have you been playing? I know I know because I've been watching your streams, but
Well, I was gonna ask you real quick before we
okay.
ask me, what's your competitive games? You know mine's Apex.
I haven't played in a while, but Rocket League is probably my top competitive game. It's the one that I actually kind of put the time in to be good at because I have like I think 1,500 hours in it or something like that. Um,
Damn.
I'm trying to think. My friends are really into Rainbow Six Siege, and I can play that from time to time, but I get too mad at that game. Like not even just like the people in that game, I just get mad at the game. So I kind of dropped Siege.
Like its design?
Like the gameplay, the design, I don't know. I'm more of like a Call of Duty Battlefield kind of shooter person, and
Uh,
Siege is designed a bit differently than those. I couldn't really get into it.
I've never played it before, so I wouldn't know, but
It's kind of like if you took Call of Duty and Counter Strike and like they had a baby. It's the best way I could put
oh.
it. It's kind of like that. That's probably not a good description. I'm sure people in the comments are gonna be like, "What the hell is he talking about?" But so
How dare you?
Rocket League is probably the top competitive game. I played Apex for a little bit around when it came out, but then people just got too good at it, and I didn't. So I just kind of stopped.
How
But
dare they?
I know, right? Why couldn't everybody just suck? It's the same problem with Fall Guys. I got really into that, and then everybody got really good at it, and I stopped.
I haven't played Fall Guys before, but every time I watch somebody playing it, it looks so much fun.
It is. It's one of those games that's good to kind of just chill with every now and then. Like, it's not a game that I think I could play consistently for a long period of time. But
Hmm.
so we know you, like you mentioned, we know your competitive game is Apex. Do you have
Nice.
other competitive games or favorite games?
No, I got platinum today on
Nice.
Apex, so that made me happy. But no, other than Apex, that's probably where my competitive streak sort of is centralized. But I like to play Impact. As those who know me, I'm an absolute Genshin fangirl. Otherwise, it's mostly what the community votes for. So we're going through the story of Pokemon Sword with the expansions and also Monster Hunter stories.
That's right. Yeah, you just started. Well, you technically just started stories today, right? Because you played the beta before
So I played the demo, but the cool thing
demo.
is that you can transfer the demo data over, so I didn't really lose anything in playing the demo.
Gotcha.
But it's been a
Well,
lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it right now.
nice. Yeah. Have you played the other? I'm assuming you've played the like. I know you've played the other Monster Hunter games, but what other Monster Hunter games have you played?
So before stories, I was obviously playing Rise, and before Rise, I played Monster Hunter World like religiously. Like loved Monster Hunter World. But before that, I didn't really know the franchise that well.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't either. I have some friends that got really into World. I played it a little bit, but I don't know if I ever actually really finished it. I might have
It's
finished the
so
story,
grindy.
but I didn't get into like the end game stuff really that I feel like a lot of people actually play the game for. Like maybe my perception is wrong, but I feel like most people play the Monster Hunter games for like the grind and not the actual like story.
Pretty much. I mean, the story's good. Like the story. Wow, the story is really
Yeah.
good. It's cute, and the Monster Hunter World story was fine too. Like it's a good story, but you're definitely playing for the grinding, like actually hunting the monsters and getting top gear, and it's kind of like a pride badge, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. I have trouble with those kind of games in a lot of cases. The purpose of the grind ones. Like I'm just thinking of Destiny now. That's one of the few ones that I kind of get into as far as grinding games go.
Do you just not like the grinding concept? Like you need like quests, like an actual end goal?
I think, yeah, like that's a good way to put it. I think with the grind, it's kind of like I want it to have a point other than the grind, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. It
in the
makes sense.
Monster Hunter games and even in Destiny, like the point of the grind is to get better gear so that you can grind more. For me, it has to be more like one of those things. Like the point of the grind is to get better gear to like advance in the story or unlock
Right,
more
right, right.
content, that kind of stuff. So like there's kind of it needs to have an upper layer, I guess. But they're
That
not
makes
bad
sense.
games. I want to play Rise. I don't have a Switch, but when I finally get one, because I've been slowly and slowly getting more convinced to get one so I can play games with other people. But
Doesn't I think Rise is coming out on PC, isn't it? If it's not already.
probably, with my luck, it's going to come out on PC like right after I buy a Switch.
Well, Stories is on PC now.
Yes, that's true. So I guess since we were talking about current games that you're playing with Monster Hunter Stories, we could talk about that a little bit. What are you thinking of it so far? Because I'm kind of like I enjoy it, but I don't know if it's my type of game. If that makes sense.
So it was like a little bit slow for me to get into, if only because when you first start it, it feels just basically like Pokemon, essentially, but in the Monster Hunter world. But kind of as you get further into it, and the story's very cute, but as you get further into it, more of its own elements start emerging. Like the battle system is a lot more refined than Pokemon in its own way. Um, and they just introduce cute mechanics and neat mechanics that make the game overall feel more full. I know the first Monster Hunter Stories was missing a lot of the quality of life stuff that the second one has brought in, so I'm enjoying it so far.
Gotcha, that's good. Yeah, I think the best way I can describe it from what I've been able to tell, I haven't played it myself, is it's like a mix of like Pokemon, Monster Hunter, and Breath of the Wild. It's kind of like the three like games of kind of Breath of the Wild, not so much mechanically, but like aesthetically. The graphics just constantly remind me of the way Breath of the Wild looks. I don't know if that's the same for other people, but
No, that's a definitely a fair combo. I'd say the same thing.
so what would you say is the Monster Hunter Stories the favorite content that you're doing right now, or is there other favorite content that you're doing right now?
No, my favorite content is still my Genshin Impact stuff. If only I don't know why, I just
It's
love
always
Genshin
Genshin.
Impact so
Always
much.
back
It's
to
always
Genshin.
Genshin.
Did they
I don't know
announce?
why.
Did they announce when the new season or expansion or whatever it's called is going to drop? Like I know we watched
For
that, but
3 days away.
is it 3
3
days?
days?
Okay.
Maybe it's 4 days, but time zones.
So Seffi's going to do a 24-hour stream. You heard it here first.
Yeah, I don't know why, but yes, that whole area 2.0, 3, 4 days, whatever the time zone is, I don't know.
Mhm.
But that's it. That's what that my entire week that week is just Genshin.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Are there? I'm like I know there are new characters. Is there like? So I guess I will admit the only stuff I know about Genshin is really from what I've gained from your streams. So would you, for the people that don't know, aka me, would you like to kind of describe what Genshin is about and like how you play it, if that makes sense?
Okay, so if you've never seen Genshin ever before or never played it, I would say that when you first start playing it, it completely 100% plays like Breath of the Wild. No doubt about it. 100%. The art style, I love the mechanics. So you'd cross Breath of the Wild with a gacha style game, and then I guess it kind of stands on its own outside of that, but you cross those two and you've got Genshin Impact. And the reason I love it so much is not only have they done like beautiful stories and not only have they done like beautiful music and like they're constantly bringing out content. Like there isn't a week that they don't have something for you to do.
Nice. Yeah, that's really good. I feel like I was just talking to somebody about Minecraft being kind of the same way. Like it's been out for like a decade now and they're still releasing content for it. So it's really cool to see all the new updates. But yeah, with Genshin, so have you played other gachas before Genshin?
I played like Fate Grand Order
Yeah, that's what I played
and
too.
a little bit of E7, but not so much. But mostly Fate Grand Order, and then yeah, Genshin.
Yeah, I played Fate, and that's kind of when I got really into Fate for like a couple months, and then I was like, gachas are ruining my life. I need to stop. And I think that's honestly part of why I haven't really gotten into to Genshin. Like as fun as it looks, I just don't really want to play another gacha game.
The thing I guess I appreciate about Genshin is because of the continuous content, like weekly content, events and whatever, they're constantly giving you their version of currency to get your wishes or your whatever, your RNG. So even if you stay free to play, you're not any less competitive than somebody who's whaling for characters.
That's good. I know a lot of I feel like that's been kind of the focus for a lot of gacha games recently, which is good. I mean, it makes them more appealing to a general audience. I think. I know the reason I'm saying that is because I know Arknights is also does a pretty good job from what I've heard about
Mm-mm.
giving free content out or like letting people be on the same level.
Yeah,
Um,
so you could like essentially spend nothing and still get a lot of the like heroes or waifus or husbandos that you want in Genshin.
is there a is there a waifu you're aiming for in the new update?
Yup. So Ayaka is the first banner that starts with the new update, and I lost my 50/50 pity on Kazu, which means I'm guaranteed her, so I'm excited.
Ah, so you were planning this from the beginning. It was all perfectly
Yes.
coordinated.
Perfectly executed.
Do you have like a week to get her? Is there? I'm sure there's a time limit. How long is the time limit?
So the premium banners usually last like 20 something days, I think,
Oh, okay.
22 maybe. So yeah, plenty of time. With all the events and stuff, you can almost guarantee you'll get yourself a 5 star as long as you play daily and do all the stuff to get your currency.
Makes sense.
I the only thing that I've spent money on for Genshin is I buy the battle pass
Gotcha.
each um each round. So a battle pass usually lasts like 31 days. And then I also buy the welcome time thingies.
What are those? I have no idea.
The welcome time thing, if you buy it, it's like for me it costs $8 in like Australian dollars, and it gives you 300 gems, which you can convert one for one to the primo gems, which you use for wishes. And it also gives you 60 days that every day you get 90 primo gems.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, that does sound pretty good. I'm assuming the battle pass also probably gives you cosmetics and currency throughout the month or as you're playing.
Yeah, as you level it up, you get like cosmetic. Oh, well, not so much cosmetics. The cosmetic stuff's kind of new to Genshin. They just started bringing out outfits, but you get like level up materials and wishes and primo gems and like their currencies and stuff like that.
Gotcha. That makes sense. It's pretty similar to other battle passes. So other than getting new waifus, is there something what are you most excited for in the upcoming update?
No, that's it.
Oh,
That's it.
just getting waifus. Don't care about anything else. They
No,
had
no.
like an hour long like presentation where they talked about the developers and like how much work they put in and all the story and areas they were building. Zephy saw the waifu in the first like minute and he's like, all right, the rest of this I don't care about.
I'm told. No, no. Inuzama looks so. It's everybody knows that I'm a purple fanatic. For those that don't, you do now. And it's electro based. Like this whole continent is electro. So there's lots of purple. It's also highly modeled after like Japanese, like traditional Japanese places. So there's lots of tea houses, which I'm excited about, and just a lot of Japanese culture sort of thrown in there. So it's supposed to be very beautiful. Lots of cherry blossoms.
As far as I understand it, you can like build your own like home area in Genshin, so I'm sure Zephy's will be just a giant tea house by the time that this over the next like month is over.
Yes, that's the plan.
So other than getting waifus and building your tea house in Genshin, what are some of your other kind of future content plans? It doesn't have to be Genshin; it can be other streaming stuff.
So For those who don't know, I've actually taught myself how to rig live 2D models specifically for my own VTuber journey. And at the moment, I'm working on Zeph 2.0. So I've completely redrawn my model for her, and I'm completely re-rigging her from the ground up with all the stuff that I learnt the first run through. So after that, I think I'll consider being like what us VTubers call a VTuber mama. So I'll probably open up a slot or two to rig and or do art for people. So that's my future. That's the nearest future plan. I'm not very good at looking too far ahead, but that's the nearest future plan.
Kind of the same way. I have a lot of dreams like way down the line that I know I want to do, but I'm really bad about like actually doing them.
Yep. Or how to get there.
Yeah, the in between part, not so great.
Yep.
Do you have so with Zeffy 2.0, do you have like ideas on costumes? Is she going to be one of those models that can change costumes all the time, or what is your kind of interest in that?
She will have costumes that she'll change over time. I'm thinking seasonal, but at the moment, I'm just committed to getting her out. So the design is there'll be a lot of like the familiar stuff that everybody's used to, her wings, her antennas, the hair colors, the color schemes. None of that changes, but I've just really refined how her hair flows and how it moves and all of that. So the point was more to refine my own art style when it comes to live 2D models.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. The reason I kind of asked is because it feels like throughout the VTubing community, there's all sorts of you have like kind of people more in my camp where like I have my model and I'm happy with it and I probably won't really change it that much. Like I'll add like fun accessories and stuff, but the base model isn't going to change. But then there's on the other end of the spectrum in the VTuber community, you have people that I feel like they change like their models or go through complete redesigns every like month. So I was kind of curious where Zephy was going to fall into the rhythm there.
No, so it's not about changing like any law or anything major about her model design as much as it's refining it. So it's just going to have more layers to it, more depth than what she has currently. That's all.
Nice. That sounds really cool. I will certainly be looking forward to Zephy 2.0.
Me too.
And then as soon as she gets it done, she'll announce Zephy 3.0.
Yes. Wait, don't at me like that.
Let's see here. I'm trying to think if there's anything. So I guess this is somewhat related to that. You mentioned you're not really good at looking far ahead, but if there was something that you could do or make that you could do like without ever, it would guarantee to be successful, and you wouldn't have to worry about like money or anything like that. Basically, you have free reign to do anything that you could possibly want to do. What would that be, if that makes sense?
So in regards to like Zeph's journey, like my journey with Zeph, if I could do anything and hire anybody, it would be somebody to do like I'm not good at video editing. I'm just not
Same.
good at it. Like there's some really good artsy videos for like channel intros and stuff like that that I admire that I just have no idea, absolutely zero idea how to do. And if I could just dump a whole lot of money or whatever, that would be what I would either learn or just hire like a team to do. please do this for me because I have zero idea. But that's what I would do, and that's like something that I. So I started the YouTube as well. My main focus is the stream, but eventually I want to be able to get into where I can put YouTube content out on things like Genshin Impact, for example, and stuff like that. That's actually really well developed. So yeah.
So make more like actual dedicated videos as opposed to just streaming. I'd like to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in the same boat of like, it's similar boat because like I would consider myself decent, not great, but decent at video editing. But my problem is I take a really long time to do it. So like
Right.
between working full time and streaming, I don't have the time to edit like videos unless I just don't ever sleep again, which
That's a big
is possible.
mood.
But so I've been really slacking on my YouTube content lately. I've been trying to kind of develop routines and methods that like limit the amount of editing that I have to do, which is why I like this series so much because I don't have to edit it very much.
Right.
But I'm still in the same boat where like I would really love to be able to upload like side YouTube content to kind of complement the longer length
Right?
Twitch streams.
Yes.
That's
So I don't
the
know.
dream.
That feels like a big learning curve, and it's weird for me to say that because like I said, I taught myself how to rig, and Live2D Cubism is what like the program you use, and that's a huge learning curve. But I can't figure out video editing. I don't know.
Yeah, I think at least this is my perspective. I shouldn't say like I'm an expert on this at all, so it could be bullcrap. But I think with my perspective, like Live2D, at least it's like a singular program that you can just learn how to use. Whereas with video editing,
Mhm.
there's so many different like things that you can do, programs that you can use, different types of effects, different schools of thought. Even like if you look up 2 tutorials on
Yes,
how to
yes,
do
yes,
something,
yes.
they're probably going to tell you different things. Whereas with Live2D,
You're
that's
so
not
right.
really a concern. So I feel like in that sense, even if Live2D might actually be more complicated at its base level, it's a little bit like more
Consolidated
straightforward.
into its own world type thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like it's more of a straightforward process. Whereas with video editing, like it's like I said, I consider myself decent, but I can't like that's kind of more like the base level of video editing. If you gave me like After Effects or something and told me to start making like lightsabers, I'd be like, I have no okay, I got no idea. Like good
I
luck,
tap
but
out, I tap out.
yeah. So I can definitely understand the confusion, I guess, on
I
that
guess
end.
you're right in that there's a lot of ways to creatively approach it to get the image that you want. There's just so many tools and then so many thought processes, and then you have to think what works thematically and stuff like that, and then music, like, there's also music on the other like, side of it. It's just it's a big world.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff to learn. And I'm kind of I don't know if this is you how this is how you are, but with me, I like I have to focus on learning like one thing at a time. If I like go through and learn something video editing and then learn something else about video editing, but don't use the thing I used like, learned first, I'll forget about it completely. And then
Nope,
I'll just
I'm the
have
same.
like I was like, okay, well, I have this new knowledge now, but I didn't I didn't gain anything out of this.
I got this new knowledge, and then I didn't use this new knowledge, so goodbye new knowledge.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I
one
feel
day we'll
that.
be pro video editors. I'll just
One
add that to
day.
the list. But it's still very impressive that you're able to do Live2D stuff, and I totally
Oh, yeah.
understand wanting to have a team of video editors because I mean honestly I think that's how most people are. There are definitely people out there that love doing video editing, and I swear you guys are magicians. You make the internet run in the current age, but
Mhm.
I just would also prefer to have kind of a team that does that and then I put out the content.
Right. One day I'll be able to hire somebody to do that for me who enjoys it.
Exactly, that's the key. She said, yeah, she's saying that so she can cover herself when she just hires a bunch of like video editing
Yeah,
slaves
and then
and
I'm a
just
dictator.
forces them to like work for her. Um,
I had to add the disclaimer, who enjoy it.
yes, perfect. Uh, so I guess moving kind of more away from the video editing stuff and more kind of towards specifically VTubing, we'll start with the of course the first one that we always have to ask: is there a person or a thing, or how were you inspired to become a VTuber? Kind of what was that journey?
It came about a little bit weird, I guess. So I've always been into like anime and stuff like that, like Japanese culture in itself. Um, but just the anime, the art style, the emotions that come about from watching it. And I used to enjoy that, or still do, with a really good friend of mine. And they introduced me to the EN Hololive crew. And I started watching like these Holo live streams, and then that's where the rabbit hole began. So I've just dove straight into it, and then after months, I was like, I wonder how could I do this? Like, could I do this? Theoretically, could I do this? And I gave it a shot, and here we are.
And months later, here we are. Nothing in between. But yeah, that's. I mean, you said it's weird, but honestly, that's pretty much word for word my journey as well. Like,
Yeah.
because like I didn't have a friend necessarily that introduced me to Halloween. But I was also very into anime. I have since not watched anime because I've just been sucked into VTubers. But I did at
You're
one
watching
point like
YouTubers.
anime. I do still like anime. I just haven't watched any in a long time. But and
What?
then
What? Wait! You can't find time to watch anime as well as watch all the VTubers, as well as watch work a full time job, as well as make content.
make content and then do
God,
video editing in the middle of the night. Like, I know, right? I'm just such a lazy slob. I really need to get on my act. I should just be watching all of the anime and all of the VTubers doing all the
Yes.
content and doing all the work.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I saw the Holoyen. I think it was their debuts actually. I managed to catch their debuts.
Nice.
And at least some of them. I watched Callie and Ina. I don't think I watched the other ones. In any case, at least
And
live.
one
I
of my
watched them
favorite.
behind the watch the VODs later, but anyway, I watched them, kind of started getting into the Holoyen just like you. I accidentally, I feel like, I don't know if he would like say this is true, maybe there's more to this story, but I feel like I corrupted him because he wasn't interested in VTubers like at all at first, and then we kept like sharing, like it wasn't just me per se, it was some other friends too, but we kept sharing like HoloLive images and memes and clips with him, and eventually we just like, he got sucked in. He hasn't come out since.
Yep, that's what happens.
But we got into Holuya, and I started getting into the Holo JP as well, and V Shoujo, and eventually branched out into independence. And for me, it was kind of the same idea. But I guess I'm curious more specifically, was there something that kind of inspired the butterfly theme, the being as as of a butterfly as you are, the coziest butterfly?
So I guess when I decided to give VTubing a shot, I knew obviously that I needed to have a theme, like something that my model was modeled after and stuff like that. And my thought process is what brings me peace and like happiness. Because to be Seth, like I'm happy and I'm cozy. And the first thing that came into my head was butterflies because they've always brought me that sort of serene, cozy happiness. Like I used to sit and read when I was a wee lass in the butterfly house and stuff like that. And so it was a fairly easy decision. As soon as it came to my head, I knew that that was the right one.
Gotcha. I like that. Yeah, makes sense. Very. I feel like that's, if I were to give advice, which is probably not a good idea, but I've done it before, so we'll keep
That's
doing
away.
it. I feel like if you're wanting to become a VTuber, choosing kind of who you are or your theme is like the most important thing. I feel like you should do that first before you even worry about the technical
Absolutely.
or like anything else, because that's how it was for me. And as Zeph mentioned, that's kind of how it was for her. Like I thought of becoming a star with a face before I even really thought about the fact that like, I could actually like do this as a VTuber. So like I just
Yeah.
had the idea of being a star with a face.
I was gonna ask how you came to be Sol, but there you go.
Yeah, I mean, like there is more. Like I kind of similar to you. Is just I've always been very into astronomy. I really like stars. Whenever I played video games and that kind of stuff, I always look for stuff with star or sun themes because that's, or even just space in general, really, because that's stuff I've always been very interested in. And for me, it's been mostly a hobby, but it is still fun to kind of share the knowledge that I gain from my hobby with other people. And yeah, I don't remember if there was a specific like trigger per se that made me think of the star with the face, the star with sunglasses. But
The star with the face.
I just had the idea, and I think part of it was also the fact that like I was fairly into VTubers at that point, and I had not seen anything like it. Like I mean, I guess you could
I was
make the
gonna
argument
say
that like Annoying Orange kind of because it's just an orange with a face, but like
no, like I have yet to come across anybody who's taken the astrologist thing quite literally, like the sun theme. There's people who will theme their like um dragons after suns or whatever, like they're from space and stuff like that, which is all cool in its own right. But never have I seen an actual astral body, like an actual
yeah,
ball of gas.
the actual star. Yeah, well, and that's like it's just like one of those things where there are inanimate object VTubers, but they're definitely a lot more few and far between than
Hmm.
this. I guess what you call the standard VTuber of more of a humanoid model with other themes like dragons, butterflies, and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So I won't claim to be like the first inanimate object VTuber or anything like that. Like I mentioned, there's Annoying Orange from way back in the day, but
Yes.
uh, it's definitely I liked. It's definitely a lot more unique, a lot more unique than just a sun theme dragon or a star stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
like the aspect. I'm trying to think of some other. There's a toaster. The toaster's a lot of fun. Uh,
I'm sure I've seen a chair as well.
and other inanimate object VTubers. Captain Krabs is a good one. I mean, that's technically an animal, but he's literally a crab with a little pirate hat.
Oh, there's that one that's like there's Goon Yella, who's an Aussie VTuber as well. They're literally a kangaroo stuffed toy. They've even got the little "Made
Ooh,
in Australia"
nice.
tag hanging off their ear. It's so cute.
So yeah, like not to say that there's anything wrong with doing the other themed models; those are totally fine too. But it's just I liked the unique aspect of being a little bit more out there, both in terms of
Literally.
distance and ideas. Yeah, exactly. See, Zephy gets me.
I get it.
The that said, especially now because it feels like VTubing kind of obviously it's been around for years, but it feels like this past year, especially the pandemic, it's really blown up. Where do you think VTubing is kind of go? You talk about yourself as well, but just like where do you think the industry, shall we say, is going to go?
It it definitely feels like it got bigger because everybody was like, well, what can I do at home? And then they got sucked down into probably the VTubing hole, however they got there. And then that's how more have sort of come about. Like there's more PNG tubers now, which there's some of them are absolutely 100% talented. And then you've got the Vroid models as well, the 3D models, which usually, I think they originally stemmed from like a virtual reality place and then they bled into actual streaming, which is amazing. And then you get your Live 2D, which is obviously themed more after your anime lovers and whatever. It's definitely grown in the last 12 months compared to what it was when it was just like um
Keys not I.
Hollow Live. Well, just Hollow Live kind of had the whole
Gotcha.
market, and then obviously Niji Sanji and what's the one that starts with V? You mentioned them before.
V Shoujo.
V, yep. So they those three really had all of the market for a while there. There wasn't a lot of independent ones, and now 12 months down the track, that there is there is a lot of us, and a lot of them. There's a lot of just unique stories out there. There's no one story that's the same when it comes to VTubing, which is something that I love because like you watch normal streamers, which power to them and whatever, but it's all about obviously a game they love, so they'll get really good at that, and that's all their content's based around, or they've just started it as a hobby or whatever. And a lot of us have started this as a hobby, but there's also layers to it. There's lore, there's stories, there's networking within networking, just because of like scenery or whatever. So that's cool. I think I went off topic a little bit, but
No, it's
it's
okay.
definitely gotten bigger in the last 12 months than what it was. Um, for me, like I said, I'm not too good at looking too far ahead in the future, but what I've already started building, I'm a big fan of, like this cozy community that was originally selfishly for myself to have friends to game with that were also interested in anime and VTubing and stuff like that. But it's kind of grown into a community that's wholesome and supportive, and it's like a space that has and does offer like creative outlets in a we've done a good job of making it not too there's a word I'm looking for. It's not too soft, like it stands up for itself. It's got a spine, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, the community in itself, but and it's got a lot of different personalities, but it somehow all still comes together quite well.
The
And I wanna build on that. I wanna continue making that sort of space for people.
I like it. The image that came to my mind is like it's not just all like the community isn't just entirely comf. There is some stuffing in there it's not just the outside of the teddy bear.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, there is. It's
There's
not
some
just
structure.
cozy vibes in there. There's a lot of structure. I love it. It surprised me on how it came about and that it came about, but I have no words on how much, like, I adore the community that's, like, building itself. It's so good.
Yeah, I
And
like
there's
it.
degeneracy, and it's not, like, distasteful degeneracy. I don't know. It's just it's good. It's all good.
Hey, there's respectful. It's all about looking
Yes,
respectfully, and then
yes,
just
looking
generate
respectful.
the I like that. So yeah, there's a lot in there. With as far as like regular streamers versus VTubing goes, like I feel like the appeal for VTubing for me at least was like what you were saying. Like you can play because there's definitely regular streamers. I guess that's what we'll call them, quote unquote regular streamers that have like themes around their character, like what they're doing on stream and all that kind of stuff. But it's kind of difficult for them to play a character because you can literally see them. So like unless they're pretending to be somebody completely different, which I haven't really seen. Like you could argue that like maybe like Doctor Disrespect and them back in the day were playing a character, but
Or
even
people who
then,
cosplay a whole lot.
yeah, but even then, at the end of the day, it is still like them. Whereas with VTubing and that kind of stuff, you can literally be a star or you can literally be a butterfly. So like, there's kind of a mix element of both the streamer and the stories and the lore, like you were talking about, which is a lot more
Hmm.
appealing. Being able to tell that story on top of just the normal content that you would put out. It's funny because you joked
Absolutely.
about them like only really doing it for gaming, and I'm sitting here thinking like, man, I suck at drawing, I suck at music, I can't do like anything other than gaming. I feel like I'm being called out right
No,
now.
but you're also a freaking star, you know? Like,
Right, yeah, no,
it's
I do
so
what you
much
meant. It was just
different.
funny. I was thinking that to myself. I was like, man, I should really learn how to draw or something.
How
but
dare she at me so hard?
but yeah, and kind of more towards the later point you're talking about, I definitely feel like most VTuber streamers go into it having kind of a goal, what they'd like. Like maybe it's to make friends, or in my case, it was just I play games all the time and I'd like to have fun with it. You know, maybe talk to people, get new experiences, new perspectives, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But like you, like it's like what the community has done and like my chat and all that kind of stuff. It's not ever what I expect, and I feel like that's how it is for most streamers. Like if a streamer came up to me or a VTuber or whatever and said like, "Oh yeah, my growth, like I totally expected everything that was going to happen," I'd be like, "What the heck are you? Like what? How?"
Are you a fortune teller or?
Like the community that I won't say that I have a super massive community or anything like that, but like the Gremlin Crew community that I'm kind of a part of, like I never
Hmm.
expected that crazy stuff to happen.
Right.
Like all the crazy interactions that I had with other VTubers. I feel like I mentioned this I think when I was talking to Neon on his stream. But when I first got into VTubing, like the community is great and all, don't get me wrong, but I was kind of surprised at how isolated it can feel when like
It
you
can
obviously
for
have your
sure.
chat, but like I didn't really interact with other VTubers that much, at least not in a meaningful way. Like sure, there's the Twitter stuff that like you're always pumping other people up, and that's fine. Like you should definitely do that, and I'm happy to do that, and I'm glad to be part of it. But I wasn't like making friends with other VTubers per se until later on.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. So on Twitter, which is where primarily a lot of VTubers do their social mediaing and networking and stuff like that, it's a very wholesome community. Like there's no way you could on Twitter, and there's VTubers who have come from past streaming normally or whatever. You couldn't get that same sort of pumping up feeling that you get from the VTuber community on Twitter. Like everybody's there to support one another, but it's on a surface layer until you decide to build on that relationship with somebody like you and I, for example, like it stumbled across one another due to mutual connections, and then our relationship grew into a really good friendship. But on Twitter itself, it's very surface level, and then you got to kind of get into the nitty gritty.
Hey there, just taking a quick break to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Waffles. That's right, delicious, tasty waffles. If you don't have some waffles right now, you should definitely be listening to this podcast with more waffles. I think that's really the only sensible solution, is to get more waffles. Anyway, here we go back into the action. Moving kind of on from the VTubing and the Twitter stuff, is there a game that you would say most drastically changed your life, or like a game that hits you with nostalgic, other than Genshin Impact? Because I feel like we've talked enough about Genshin Impact.
Well, I'll talk about what originally got me into gaming, I suppose. So the two biggest for me were or are the Zelda franchise and the Elder Scrolls franchise. They are where I fell in love with gaming. So I guess the first big RPG I got into from Elder Scrolls was Oblivion. Um, like it's just such a huge world. Like they make such big worlds. I didn't play a whole lot of Morrowind, but Oblivion was the big one for me where I was like, I love open world RPGs. I love them. I love the questing. I love getting distracted and going on like big side quests that I forget what I was doing 7 hours ago. Um, So that was a huge like revelation for me when it came to gaming and why I still love RPGs. Um, and then the Zelda franchise, I mean, Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess and stuff like that, they're not open worlds, and it never was an open world too much. It's a weird one. It's kind of linear, but kind of not. The Zelda franchise until Breath of the Wild, but Twilight Princess was probably my favorite one for the Zelda franchise, just because it's beautiful storytelling. Like Zelda always does beautiful storytelling. You fall in love with the characters. You fall in love with how they got to where they got, and like the calamity is always different every time you play a Zelda game or whatever like that. But that's where I fell in love with Nintendo. So you kind of combine the two, and that's mostly what I do.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. So I have a couple thoughts. The first one that's kind of running through my head is I was definitely not a Nintendo star, shall we say. I was much more into PC gaming years ago, and then kind of transitioned into Xbox. That's kind of where I went. Eventually I kind of came back to PC, and now PC is my primary gaming, but like, so I kind of missed a lot of the Nintendo stuff. I did play some of the Zelda games much later, after they, like, years after they came out, but I definitely didn't get into it as much as I feel like I would have if I'd played them when they actually were releasing. Like,
Yeah,
I never really kind of got into the Zelda, the franchise, but
you missed the original hype.
I did very much get into the Elder Scrolls series. Although again, I did kind of miss the hype on that one, because I didn't get Oblivion again until years after it had come out. But that one definitely grabbed me a lot more than the Zelda ones did.
Mm.
The It's funny because I'm thinking about it now. These days, open world games are so common that I feel like it loses a lot of the specialness, the luster, I guess. But back then, there were still other open world games. It wasn't like Bethesda and the Elder Scrolls were the only ones. Because, like, I mean, GTA was still around, some other open world, but it definitely felt a lot more special being able to
But
explore those open worlds.
I don't like with GTA and all that back when they were there, because they were big open world ones. Like you said, it feels like though that what Elder Scrolls and Bethesda did right with that franchise is that there was a world within the quest that you were on. Like so you with GTA and stuff like that, your side quests were more of the same. Not to say that that's all
Let's
it
go
is now.
bowling.
Yeah, like GTA 5 has its own, rightfully so, following both online and not online, because they really developed it into something where it feels like a world when you're playing it. But before then, before Elder Scrolls, I don't think there was a game that was that big and that open world, like truly open world, that also made the world feel like it was alive. Like it didn't matter where you were, there was a reason that you were there, and the NPCs around you were living their own life and stuff like that.
Yeah, that is a good way to put it. Like, it definitely, I guess kind of the point I was trying to make was just that it's funny thinking about the open world games of the past and how much of an impact they had compared to today, where it's just like, oh, look, it's another open world game.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah,
care. Like, I feel
true.
like most of Ubisoft's catalog at this point, they're trying to make everything open world.
Oh, yeah, true.
Um, so the Bethesda games and what they can do, like with the Elder Scrolls series and Fallout as well, with the open world, is still, they do. You're right in that they do a very good job of making the world feel alive. And
Mhm.
the other thing I think nice about those games, kind of compared to the GTAs we mentioned, is that they make the world feel alive, and it's still like a fantasy world. Like,
Yeah.
that's what's even cooler about it. It's not just like it's a recreation of our own. Um,
Universe.
yeah.
That's true.
Let's see, I'm trying to think. So I guess kind of related to the fantasy element, that kind of stuff. Do you have like a favorite? Well, I guess it doesn't have to be fantasy. I was thinking, like, do you have like a favorite movie or TV franchise, or book series as well? Books are always a good source of
Um,
entertainment.
so my favorite book series will still like I love books. I love to read. It's not something that I talk about a lot. Like people probably don't realize how much of a bookworm I am, but I love to read. And I love to read with the book actually in my hand. Like I don't, which probably I guess matches like your cozy tea house vibes, like having a book and drinking a cup of tea or whatever. Um, but I love the physical book. I don't use like Kindles or anything like that personally. I will go purchase the book. But my favorite series to this day still remains to be the Farseer trilogy by um, Robin Hobb. Hobb? Is it Robin Hobb? Wait, I'm not sure
I
about that.
recognize the name of the series, but the authors, no idea. um, I'll
Yes, no, I
have
had
to,
it
have
right.
to check
Sorry,
it out.
it's Robin Hobb, but so it's like it's deep fantasy. Like it's a slow read in some parts. It's nothing like Lord of the Rings, which can get quite slow in some areas for a long time. But um, it's just another layer of what made me fall in love, I guess, with fantasy worlds. In that,
Nice.
like I said earlier, I love to sit in the butterfly house and just read and stuff like that. It was one of the ones that I would read, so it's my probably my favorite. But the movies and stuff like that, like I love Marvel, not to the point where I will write off DC or anything like that, but I love the Marvel universe. So any of those movies kind of grab my attention, but I'm more into anime and TV shows, I guess. But the first anime I ever watched, no, actually, the first anime that I ever watched that made me look for more than just your mainstream animes was Wolf's Rain because it made me depressed. And like it made me depressed and then I was like, wow, that's like the fact that it's evoking kind of like these emotions, that's pretty cool. There must be some out there that don't make you feel depressed, probably. Um, so that's where I fell in love with anime and started looking from there.
Well, it's good that you weren't immediately put off from anime by being depressed on the very first thing that you watched. Because I feel like, for me, I don't usually watch the depressive stuff. It's not that I hate it; I just don't really enjoy making me sad. Like
That's fair.
I keep thinking of like some really sad anime, like as it
Made in Abyss.
I Made in Abyss, Angel Beats,
Mm.
That was like, uh, I have some friends. Like, don't get me wrong, they're good. I just don't want to be sad.
Yes, that's fair.
Um, but it's also
I'm
funny that you go ahead.
I'm not sure. Like, I don't chase those anime to be sad as much as I chase anime that evoke a feeling. So if it's like a whole lot of happiness and joy, then that's great. If it's depression, crippling depression, that's great storytelling. Like,
True.
and I love great storytelling. I really do, which is another thing of why I love VTubing so much as well.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like I guess the best way I can put it is kind of like I go through like phases rather than just like generally being like interested in the storytelling or sad. Like there's times where it's like, man, I really need a good like sad anime, like a good cry. That would be
Hmm.
good. But for
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
most part, I don't generally. That's like a once a year kind of thing for me. It's not very common. I'm definitely more into the
And that's when
traditional.
meteor showers happen, ladies and
Yes,
gentlemen.
exactly. There's actually a meteor shower that's happening today, tomorrow, um, soon. Anyway, that's a completely different topic. But it's funny that you mentioned Lord of the Rings because that's actually my favorite series of books, which I know is a little basic, I guess should we say, but I really enjoy those books. Those are kind of what I didn't read those. Those are kind of what got me like really into reading. I read the Harry Potter series when I was fairly young as well, but I didn't. Funnily enough, like that was one of the first like big series of books I read, but I actually kind of like fell out of love with it by the end of it.
That's fair. I think so. A lot of people haven't actually read the Lord of the Rings books. Like, there's
That's
people
true.
who obviously everybody knows it. Everybody knows what Lord of the Rings is. Everybody's probably seen the movies and stuff like that. But not a lot of people have actually read the books, and that's not because the books are terrible. The books are freaking amazing, but they
Yeah,
are a hard read.
that's true. Yes, they're definitely. It's a lot more dense, I guess I could say, than like the
Mm-hmm.
movies are because Tolkien does a very good job at building a world,
Yeah.
but the downside of that is there's a lot of information that a casual viewer or reader would not
Mm-hmm.
care about at all whatsoever.
There's a lot of like, and there's a lot of details, but yeah, it can be very dry if you're not used to reading that deep fantasy, like you said.
So yeah, but the other some other series that are definitely up there for me are probably the Foundation series from Isaac Asimov. Fantastic classical sci-fi. Very really gets you thinking. That's one of those where,
Mm.
like, I think the best way I can put it is it's just it really messes with your mind.
Does it
um,
make you feel what's that, word where you have a existential crisis?
well, an existential crisis would be like you're questioning your existence, your place
Yes.
in the world. Yes.
Does that book do that to you?
Hmm. I don't know if it quite goes that far.
Mhm.
It's more one of those things where like the best way I can describe it, I guess, is like it makes you think about what could be and also what the world is
Right.
like, if that makes sense. Which I feel like is what great sci-fi should do. Like you're
Yes,
because with
totally.
great sci-fi, looking at you're looking kind of at two things. You're looking at a potential future in some cases. Some go more towards fantasy. Like Star Wars, probably not going to happen, but some other sci-fi might actually happen. But the reason you're even like, or I guess what you can take away from looking at these futuristic fantasy awesome worlds is kind of how they reflect the world that we currently live in. So, like with the Foundation series, it's got some really cool science fiction elements in it. But at the end of the day, you also look at and you can see the parallels that Asimov has drawn from the society in those books to the society that we currently live in.
Right. Do you know what that
Um,
makes me think of? Have you ever seen the TV show Raised by Wolves?
I've heard of it. I don't think I've seen it. I can't remember it very well.
It's worth a watch, but it's like essentially without spoiling anything, essentially the human race is dying out, and so there's a scientist who figured out a way to try and save the human race, and that is to send them to another planet. But it's not just to save the human race from extinction because it still exists. It's just it exists in only a very religious way, in that they're so devout to this path that anybody who doesn't walk that path is instantly outcast. And the scientists obviously wanted to allow free thinking, so they send like these pods with children in them to another planet, and it's you see that sort of human instincts and like thought processes and all that, and how you build a society, I guess,
Interesting. Yeah, no,
with a lot of
I get
like
what you're saying.
psychological twists and stuff like that in it. But I can't say too much without spoiling it, so it's worth a watch.
That does sound very interesting, though. I like the idea of that. I will have to give that a shot. Speaking, I'm trying to think of other. I think the other book that I always feel like I have to mention, other than the Foundation series on Lord of the Rings, is Dune, which I don't know if you've ever read that by Frank
I
Herbert.
have not. No.
It's another kind of. I feel like that one's another kind of basic answer in terms like it's a very popular science fiction book. Um, but that one's a little bit less so than Lord of the Rings because it hasn't been made into a movie yet. I'm pretty sure that movie's supposed to come out this year, so we'll see if it makes that even more popular. But it's also another very good science fiction book. That one is a little bit more, or more a little bit less. Like I don't want to say this in a bad way, but the best way I can describe it is like it's a little bit less high-minded. It's
Mm,
it's more of an like adventure book, I guess you could say. It is
right.
still a very well told story, and like the world is very fascinating, and there's all sorts of crazy stuff that happens in it that I don't really want to give away. But
Hmm.
it's definitely more of a if you're interested in the Lord of the Rings like movies, try the Dune book out.
That's
Like if
fair.
you're interested in that kind of entertainment. The I guess we also mentioned anime, so I guess we can kind of move into. Is there have you like we joked about it, but have you actually managed to watch any current or recent anime? Because I have not.
um, so something that's seasonal that just finished actually was Shadow's House. Like I was up to date with that weekly. I'm still not sure how I feel about it. It's very unique in how it's delivered, and the story is fascinating, but it's still very early to decide if I like it or not.
Left her feeling very conflicted. Is what we're getting.
Yes, yes.
That's fair. I
So
had
that's the only one I think that I've been watching recently that's like like new, and that I have to wait each week for.
gotcha. Do you usually watch anime as it's coming out, or do you find that you binge watch it?
I prefer to binge watch it.
Okay. because I do as well. Like I can't remember the last time I watched something as it was releasing. Like might have been like Naruto or something like that, like way back in the day. Like I almost exclusively just like binge watch stuff as it comes out. So like the end of a
Hmm.
season is always the most exciting time for me, which is actually
I
fairly
just
recently.
did that for Loki.
Nice. Yeah, a lot of people have been talking about that lately. Yeah, I guess you did mention the Marvel stuff with the
Mhm.
movies and kind of jump back to that, but I like don't get me wrong, the first phase of the Marvel movies was very good. Like there were a couple of duds in there, but for the most part it was a fantastic ride. But after Endgame, I kind of got off the wagon. I was like, all right, here's my stop. I'm peacing out. So I haven't watched like anything after that, and I haven't really felt like the only urge to really like for me to watch it isn't even because like I'm interested in it so much. It's just to like keep up with the current conversation, just so I like know what
Mhm.
people are talking about. I don't actually like really care all that much about Loki or WandaVision. Um, I have heard good things about Loki though, and I'm not
It's very
entirely
well done.
surprised because Tom Hiddleston is an amazing actor,
Yes.
and the character has been developed very nicely over the course of the series.
Hmm.
Um, so I might be convinced to get back into Loki.
You should do it. WandaVision, I actually haven't watched WandaVision either. I know timeline wise, it comes after the Loki series, so I might watch that next. But I don't feel any general pressure to have to watch it like tomorrow.
Yeah, that one's probably a little bit weird in the timeline too. I haven't watched it either, so I don't really know what happens throughout the course of it. But like, given that it came out after Endgame, and spoilers for Endgame for anybody who I don't know how hasn't seen it yet, but Vision dies, so like I don't know how the heck WandaVision even works in the first place. I'm sure they addressed that in the series. That's like the whole point, but I'm sure timeline wise that one's a little weird with
They've got some weird timeline stuff going on right now.
and the other thing I was going to say is just that I feel like from what I saw, reception on WandaVision was a little bit more lukewarm. I didn't really see people saying that they hated it, but it definitely feels like Loki has gotten better reception than WandaVision
Hmm.
did.
Yeah.
Um, moving back to the anime from that, I haven't really watched anything recently, but I am very excited to eventually when I stop watching VTubers, which can totally happen sometime soon. But when I stop watching VTubers, I want to watch. I'm very excited for the second season of ReZero. I
Oh,
think
I've
part
not
two
watched
of
it
that
yet.
just finished.
Yeah,
Like
it did just finish.
recently. No, I watched the first season of ReZero, but I haven't watched any of the second part.
Oh.
So I'm excited to finally do that. My friends and I are gonna try and watch. They've already watched it, but I have not seen any of Attack on Titan somehow.
Oh.
So we were going to try and kind of binge it and try and catch up to where so we could like watch the final season or final like episode or whatever the heck they're doing for the like last thing
Yeah,
um
right.
when it came out, but then they like delayed it for like a year. So we've
Mhm.
been kind of trying to figure out what we're going to do with that. At some point soon I'm probably going to watch Attack on Titan. Trying to
It's a
think of
good
this
series.
other
It's
stuff.
slow after the first season, but then it picks back up again, so it's worth it.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, because like I know people said like the first season wasn't good, but then like people didn't really seem that interested in it, and then I think the third season was like insanely good, and people started
Yeah.
talking about it being like the best anime of all time.
Yep.
I was
But
kind
the
of like,
second
oh,
season is kind of like, hmm.
okay, maybe I do need to watch this then, because I wasn't really that interested after like the second
Yeah.
season. Um, there was one other. Oh, I am very excited for. It's actually the second part of the second season is airing this current season. That was probably really hard to follow. I apologize, but the second season of Reincarnated as a Slime is finishing up currently. So it by the end, so like in a couple months,
I
part
don't
two of
know
that
that
should
one.
end. It's not the full title. I think it's That Time I Was Reincarnated as a Slime. I think is the
Oh.
full title. Um, but it's very very enjoyable series. I don't usually like it's got the kind of the classical OP protagonist trope which I
Mhm.
know people can kind of be love or hate, but I really enjoyed that one.
Do you know what I'm excited for is the second season of Made in Abyss, which I still don't know when that's coming out, but I'm
That's a good
waiting.
question. Actually, know when that's coming out either. I forgot that got announced. You know what's
It did.
airing? I think currently this season is the second season of Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. I'm
Yes,
very
I haven't
excited to
watched
watch
it yet.
that. Let's see, Made in Abyss season 2. But I think that's like the big one for this season. I don't, other than like Slime and uh, Dragon Maid, I don't really know what's airing right now.
No, they were probably a lot of them got delayed, like a lot of the bigger name ones.
Yeah,
They
this
were
past year has
supposed
been very
to they got
weird
delayed. Yeah.
as far as releases, with stuff getting delayed. I think this past season had a lot of the stuff that got delayed. This past like two
Mhm.
seasons have been pretty full, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
As
It's gonna
far
be
as
interesting when they all release like next season or the season after or something.
yeah, let's see. I don't recognize any of these other anime. Okay, yeah, so it was just those two. I didn't get the chance to see when Made in Abyss season 2 comes out. Oh well. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's any other current anime, but I don't really have anything. Maybe one day I'll actually be able to. Oh, I was gonna ask. You mentioned that you played Fate Go, so I was curious if you've watched a lot of the Fate anime or like other content.
All of them.
All of them. Have you watched? Oh, what's the one called? It's God, I've watched it and I can't remember the heck of the name of it. Fate. It's Fate Extra. Have you watched the Fate Extra anime? Fate Extra Last Encore.
No.
Okay, so you haven't watched all of them. Got you.
Ah, I did.
The reason I mean, it's not very good. I wouldn't recommend it. It's the only reason I asked it is because like nobody has watched it, so I
I
kind of
didn't even
wanted
know
to.
it
I
existed.
wanted to challenge you on your Fate knowledge.
Did not even know it existed.
The Fate Extra. See, it's actually part of the reason it's not very good is because it's based off of the Fate Extra PlayStation
Game, yeah,
PSP
I saw
games,
that.
um, which were actually decent, but the anime itself, like, you couldn't really watch it without knowing what happens in those games, which
Uh,
you can't do
which nobody played.
now. Yeah, like which nobody played, and you can't even really do now unless you happen to have a PlayStation Portable lying around somewhere. So yeah, it's okay that you missed out on that one. Some of the others. So there's obviously the Fate Zero, Fate Stay Night. Did you watch the Studio Dean version?
Yeah, and also, there's also UGB.
Right, the movie. I haven't actually seen the movie, so you got me on that one. I did actually, my journey into Fate did start with the first um the Studio Dean Fate Stay Night.
Mm,
People like told me to start with UBW, and I was kind of like
UBW.
Unlimited Blade Works or Fate Zero. And I was like, no, I'm gonna stick it out. I'm gonna watch the actual Studio Dean one, and I didn't think it was that bad. Like I was kind of surprised. Like I know it gets kind of towards the end of it gets kind of rough because now I know a lot more about Fate. But as a first time
Yeah,
watcher, I thought it was fine.
it's fine. I mean, but after you see Ultimate Blade Works, you're kinda like, "Oh."
Yeah, that's definitely fair. Like like as far as comparison goes, Unlimited Blade Works is definitely better. But I do still kind of recommend people start with the original Fate unless they redo it, which is entirely possible. I also kind of enjoyed Apocrypha. I don't know if you saw that one. Apocrypha is another one that was kind of off to the side on the Fate franchise.
I've heard of it, but yeah, I haven't watched it.
You can YouTube the fight scenes. That's about all you need to watch from that one. Anyway, I was just curious because Fate is kind of one of those franchises that I was super into. I haven't been as into it lately, which seems to be a theme for me for some reason. Definitely has
What could be
nothing to
taking
do
up your
with
time?
yeah. But so I guess we can kind of moving from my favorites towards your favorites. Do you have a favorite tea?
Mm, It changes. It probably changes seasonally, like whatever's going. So it's cold and I need to drink warm things. So at the moment, I'm focusing on, or I've been favoring, I guess, strawberry green tea, which it just kind of gives me those summer vibes that I'm missing, but it's also warm.
Fair enough. Do you this is a shameless plug. I should probably be getting money for this, but do you have a favorite like brand of tea?
No favorite brands. A lot of my like collection is from T2, but only because they have such a huge collection. Like it's just easy. But
Gotcha.
no particular brand is my favorite.
I was just curious. I don't have one either, but I admittedly don't drink too much tea. But
Do you prefer coffee?
no, I heavily prefer tea over coffee. I just kind of don't drink either that much. Like I'll drink tea before bed on occasion. I'll drink
Like chamomile tea or something.
some herbal teas. Yeah, like I won't.
Yeah.
But that's kind of, and when it gets colder out, I'll drink some more warm teas. But generally speaking, I kind of just stick with like water. Just hydrate the sun.
Hydrate.
That's all I need. Just keep
You have a
spraying
bottle of
water
water
at
on
me.
your desk.
That's true. Yeah, we got some digi water up here. Yeah, so I'm glad that you mentioned this because it kind of segues perfectly into something I was going to ask. But you mentioned it is cold in Australia right now, and I wanted to kind of just point out, or I guess you can kind of talk about what's it like having Christmas in the middle of summer because you have backwards seasons down there in Australia.
So not many people think about it. Like it's just a hard thing to think about when people from the northern hemisphere think Christmas. It's snow and white and everything like that. For me, when I have Christmas, it's beach weather and barbecues and swimming pools and then just being out in like your swimwear, whatever that is, like bikinis or one pieces or shorts, whatever. But just jumping off of piers and the ocean, I guess. Like it's hot. It's hot and humid
Typical
during
summer
Christmas.
things.
Yeah.
What everybody's doing right now in the northern hemisphere.
Yes, basically that is what we do during Christmas. But it typically during December will reach like there'll be a week here where it's like 42 to 45 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that converts to in Fahrenheit though. I'm sorry. Too smooth brain.
It's roughly times 2 plus 32, so you're looking at like 110-ish to 120 in Fahrenheit. It's pretty dang hot.
It's just gosh damn warm. So warm enough that our roads melt.
Jeez, that's crazy hot. That's probably like 120 to 130.
Somewhere around there, I don't know. But it's very warm. So we just try and stay cool, whether that's hiding in air conditioner or by a body of water. That is our Christmas.
Sounds like a good time. I'll make sure to visit when I finally am able to travel to the Earth. I'll make sure to visit Australia for Christmas.
Destroy it. Just pointing out, you'll destroy it, but that's fine.
Yeah, no, it'll be fine. I'll figure something out. It's I mean, it's already. You already said it's like 120 degrees. How much hotter could it get?
With the sun actually there.
It's basically already what it's like. Oh, something else, not totally related to the seasons, but I was having a random conversation with a friend of mine, and we Googled it and found out that there are actually penguins in Australia. Do penguins actually live like near the in certain spots of Australia? Because when I think Australia, admittedly, I do kind of have a stereotypical perception of Australia that it's all literally just outback. There's nothing but outback for hundreds of miles. So like I was thinking penguins on the outback.
Does not compute. We do. They're not like your emperor penguins that are at Antarctica or anything. But I mean, you got to think about it. So Australia is just north of Antarctica. So animals from there that can travel do travel. You think about like killer whales, like orcas, and blue whales, and just like a lot of the bigger ocean creatures. They make the journey from Antarctica to Australia. Penguins, I'm not sure that they would travel that far, but we do have we call them fairy penguins. They're very small. like very, very small. And they will make their little like dens on the beach in the particular areas, and of an evening you can actually go and watch them.
That sounds really cool, actually.
Yeah. Fun
Nice,
fact,
yeah.
did you know Australia, I don't want to say the word owns, but percentage-wise, we own is the only word that I can think of.
You
The
take up,
biggest
you
portion,
claim.
the biggest portion of Antarctica,
Huh,
and the
interesting.
rest of the world actually shares the rest of it. So I think we have 60%, and then the 40% is shared by the rest of the world.
Well, that's good to know. So when the world gets inevitably destroyed, you'll have a little place to hang out while the rest of the continents are all falling apart. Just go hide out in Antarctica.
Yep. What could go wrong? Oh, there we go. So we have 42%, sorry, where the
Wow.
rest of the world shares the 60 or the 58%. So they all have their own like portions of that.
Huh, that's crazy. What do you
Yeah.
what do what do you use it for?
Research, I do believe.
I guess it's the only thing I can think of. Like, I guess they just have some scientists camped out down there. One
Pretty
day
much.
this will be useful.
One
That's
day.
that's interesting though. I never really thought about, like, I mean, again, I guess it's more of a stereotypical thought of just like you imagine Antarctica and the Arctic as well as just like these barren wastelands that have like nobody there, which is still kind of true. But like the fact that countries claim ownership over parts of it is something I never really thought of.
Yeah. So nobody, yeah, it's weird. Nobody owns it, but yeah, Australia definitely claims the biggest portion out of any country or continent.
Interesting. Do you have any other fun facts about Australia?
Other fun facts. Koalas are always drunk. That's one of my favorite ones to share with people. They are technically always drunk. So koalas can only eat eucalyptus leaves. That's all they can eat. It's the only thing that their stomach will ever digest. If you try and feed them anything else, they'll get very sick and probably die. So they can only eat eucalyptus, but there's an alcohol content in eucalyptus. Um, so they live in a perpetual state of drunkenness.
Good to know. It's like one of my friends. No, I'm just kidding. Huh. I've heard about the fact that koalas can only eat eucalyptus before, and it's like, are koalas the ones that like they have to be heavily monitored because they'll like kill themselves, or is that pandas? There's an animal I can't remember.
Um, I don't think koalas are notoriously known for
Maybe it's
killing
not
themselves.
koalas. I don't think it's pandas either. There's an animal that I think is fairly common in kind of Southeast Asia that it like almost like tries to kill itself if you don't like look at it. um in any case, that's totally not even a fun fact because it wasn't a fact, it was just a thought. Are there places that you would like to, you have like a ideal place that you'd like to travel to across the world, or place to go?
Um, Japan. It's somewhere
Classic.
I've yeah,
Who could
it's
have seen this
very
coming?
close. It's very close to Australia, so it's weird that I haven't actually gone there before, and I'm still learning to speak the language a little bit more fluently. Um, but it's just somewhere that I've always wanted to go, and before, like, all the worldly stuff that happened, I was going to, but yes, that is definitely somewhere that I want to go sometime in my future.
Makes
What
sense.
about you?
Yeah,
Where
I
would you
feel
go?
you. Oh well, I mean, Japan is a classical answer. Like, it's definitely on the list. I don't know if that would be like the first place I would visit. And again, this is all under the assumption that we find some kind of, like, maybe if you put me in like a Dyson sphere and just have me like roll around the planet, that we can get
You've
something like that to
just
work.
you've just got, like, goggles on looking out from this Dyson sphere.
What's that giant ball that's with you're with? Oh, don't worry about that. It's just a star.
Just a
Uh,
start. It's fun.
so Japan is definitely on the list as well. Like, I mean, being into anime and VTubing, I feel like it would be kind of odd if somebody didn't want to go to Japan in
Mhm.
those scenarios. But I would also very much like to go to New Zealand. As I mentioned, Lord of the Rings set would be very cool.
Yes.
There's other stuff to do in New Zealand, like the landscape is very beautiful,
It
but like
is, yes.
going to see the Lord of the Rings set is a very important thing to do. There's
The
all
people
sorts of
there are
places.
also very, like, chill too.
Those
Got a lot
New,
of good history in New Zealand.
New Zealanders. Don't you have
Hmm.
like isn't there a different word for them? I can't remember.
The natives are known as Maori.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember them. Um, so visiting that would be very cool. There's all sorts of places around the world that I would like to visit. I would say New Zealand and Japan are probably the top two. Trying to think if there's anywhere else I would really like to go. Apparently, the Antarctic has got a lot of stuff going on down there. I may need to go check that out.
I'd love to go to Italy too, I think.
Italy would be a good one. Yeah, I would like. It's funny because I'm hesitant to say that I'd like to visit Greece because, like, I feel like my perception of what visiting Greece would like and what actually visiting Greece would like be like are two different things. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I
Like,
just like the history.
well, see, that's why I say that because the reason, like, I would really love to see like the ruins of the Parthenon in Greece and learn.
Mhm.
I'm fairly knowledgeable about Greek history, but just learning more about it and seeing the actual place would be really cool.
Yeah.
But because it's so modern and obviously the country itself is a lot different and it has some other issues, I feel like visiting it wouldn't be quite like the history tour that I'm imagining it would be.
Yeah.
Because it's not quite like you can go and see like an ancient Spartan city or an ancient the ruins of Athens or something. Because like sure they have those buildings around, you can see them, but it's not like you could visit the actual old style city.
Well, there's that, but there's also things like Pompeii. You can actually go visit Pompeii.
True. Yeah, that's true. It's definitely not a bad place to visit. I guess it's more just what I was like why I don't put it at the top of my list because I'm very
Mm,
much into Greek history, so it would be really cool to visit
that's
that.
fair. Yeah.
But
I loved Egyptian history.
really, I don't know why I
Hmm.
don't hear as often. I feel like I hear Greek, Roman, and Norse the most.
Norse is cool too, but I loved Egyptian history for a while there.
Is there an Egyptian god of butterflies?
There is not,
Hmm.
but
Well,
there
I
should
guess
be.
I wonder
I
if
guess I could fix that.
there you go. Zephi is now the Egyptian god of butterflies. We've added to the pantheon. It's only been like 8,000 years. It's fine. We've
No
done
big
this.
deal.
I now I'm thinking about it. I wonder. I guess kind of transitioning into the butterfly. Are there butterflies in Egypt? Like,
Yeah,
is that
there
a
is. Yeah.
is that like a common thing? Do you have a Do you have a favorite butterfly
I don't really have a
other than
favorite
yourself?
butterfly. Um, there's a lot of beautiful butterflies out there. The one that I think is most magical is I can't remember its scientific name, but its wings are actually transparent. So like when it rains, you can actually only see the veins that run through the wings, and the wings themselves become completely translucent. Let me see
Sounds
if I can find
terrifying. That does sound really interesting, though. I never would have known that. Thank you for sharing. Do you have as a butterfly
Oh,
yourself? Do you have a favorite flower? Oh, you're gonna say something else.
the sorry, I was the Greta Otto. It's also known as the glasswing butterfly. That's the
Glasswing
butterfly.
butterfly and Greta Otto.
Mhm.
I'll have to keep an eye out for those. I'm sure I'll be able to see tons of them in space.
I'm sure. What was the next question? Sorry.
I was gonna ask, being a butterfly yourself, do you have a favorite flower? Because I know you're very interested in sharing flowers with people.
Wisteria is my favorite flower actually.
Hmm.
The purple variant. It's just I love the way that the little bellflowers hang down. They're very, very, very pretty.
Makes sense.
Mhm.
The I mean like I I'm terrible at growing things. I should make this admission. You'd think being a star, I would be very good at growing things, but no, I actually kind of
Nice.
instead of like providing them with the light they need, I effectively should just light them on fire because that's about as good how good I am at growing them. So I don't generally keep track of flowers, but I do remember very much enjoying sunflowers years ago, which
They're
I know
very
is like the
happy.
stereotypical answer, but like I don't know a ton about flowers. I just remember there being a field of sunflowers near where I
Very happy
was,
flower, yeah.
so I always enjoyed looking at them. Um, not totally related, but it's funny because it does make me think of this. There was a I don't know if it was on stream or it might have been I can't remember if it was like an AMA on Twitter or something. You answered. You mentioned that despite being a butterfly, you're actually not very good with bugs. And
No, I am not.
I wanted to kind of talk about that just for a moment because I also have a fear of bugs. I do not like looking at bugs.
I am severely arachnophobic. And that arachnophobia stems into most other insects for fear of it actually being a spider, which is very tough. Let me tell you, being Australian and arachnophobic,
Oh
because
God.
we have some mean spiders down here and some big spiders. But yeah, I don't deal well with spiders, and then that stems into most insects. Other than moths and butterflies, for some reason, I'm not sure why they're the two that just don't freak me out, but anything else does. I remember I was it was like just as to the end of autumn this year, and I got visited by a praying mantis. I'm actually not sure how it got inside my apartment, but um visited by a praying mantis, and I decided that if that's where it was going to stay in my apartment, then I would live everywhere else except for that one space, which unfortunately was my room, my bedroom. So
Well,
um,
time to move out.
it was tough, but yeah. So yes, deathly afraid of spiders, and yeah, it just stems into other insects, really. So
Goodness, yeah, it's like that. It's like the. It's probably a meme, but I don't know if that was like the origin of it. It just makes me think of like, yeah, I saw a spider in my house today, so I burned the spider. I burned the house down, and now I live somewhere
yes,
else.
yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's funny because like the best way I can describe for me with bugs is I don't want to call myself arachnophobic because I feel like the level that I'm uncomfortable around spiders isn't the same as somebody who actually has arachnophobia. I just get really uncomfortable around spiders. It's like I can like look at them and I can deal with them, but I don't like it. It gives me like the heebie-jeebies if that makes sense.
That's fair.
So like it's not like a deathly afraid, but I definitely don't like looking at spiders. Whenever people give me pictures of spiders, I'm just like no.
I'm
um
the kind that bursts into tears.
yeah, that's about right. I don't usually get to that far. So it's good that I'm learning from a true arachnophobe. um I'm trying to think there was a so yeah, it's like I can deal with other bugs kind of the same deal. It's like I can deal with them. I just don't except for butterflies, of course. Butterflies are fine, but with just like roaches and termites and all that kind of stuff, even ants just kind of like annoy me.
Saul had to quickly just cover himself there to make sure that he did not insult his guest. If anybody missed that,
Exactly.
that's what that
Yes.
was.
Had to cover myself. Well, it's tough because it's like, man, I hate bugs. And it's like, wait, I'm talking to a bug. No, I don't hate all bugs.
I don't know bugs help.
But it's just butterflies don't give me the heebie-jeebies. Moths don't give me the heebie-jeebies. Like, and admittedly, like ants and flies and that don't like bother me that much either. They're just I don't really like looking at them.
That's fair.
You'd think being as much of a thick boy as I am, these tiny little creatures wouldn't bother me as much as they do. But
It's the smallest ones that are the scariest.
yeah, well, I think with spiders, with a lot of bugs actually, like I feel like I could be misremembering, so don't take what I'm saying as fact. But I feel like I remember reading or hearing about like it's actually like they've evolved that way to naturally like cause predators to be less interested in them, or like they purposely have evolved to like be scary looking to things, if that makes sense. I want to say that that's at least like spiders. I don't know about all bugs.
No, it's true for all bugs. They'll all have an evolutionary something that will either deter predators through like so for butterflies it's actually their wings. That's why their wings are designed certain ways depending on where they live. So um, in Australia, a lot of our butterflies are very colorful. So when they flutter their wings, it actually deters birds because it startles them. It's like the same reason like when you have a scarecrow in a garden and you dangle shiny things off of it. Usually, it deters them. They kind of get freaked out by the sudden movement, which is why Australian butterflies are very colorful, especially up in the tropics. Um, but then there's other butterflies, and the same goes for any insect. in that they will have wing designs or whatever that blend them into their environment for the same reason.
Fascinating. That's stuff that I never really knew about butterflies.
Hmm.
But what I'm gathering from this, and what everybody listening should be understanding, is that Zeffy is telling you to be very afraid of her. Be terrified.
Yes, be terrified.
Fear the wings.
I am very malicious, very threatening,
Whenever
terrifying.
Zeffy flutters her wings, she's sending you a message, and that message is to be afraid.
Fear me.
That's pretty funny. I like that. With yeah, so I guess it's totally understandable that we don't like bugs.
Hmm.
Well, on that note, we are kind of winding down, I think. But the question I always ask at the very end, if there's one thing you could leave the audience with, what would it be?
I'm gonna lean 100% into my cozy vibes and the wholesome feels that I like to give, and it is that it's okay to take life one step at a time. A lot of people get caught up in thinking that they have to have big, grand plans all the time, and they have to be taking those milestones to reach those big, grand plans. But you actually don't need to be successful all the time. It's okay and actually very healthy for you to just to be in a moment for a second, to just pause and to take things slow, to just one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, whatever you need to do to sort of ground yourself. But we're always in such a big rush to get to from A to B or from A to B to C or whatever that you forget to just be in a moment, to just enjoy the journey. Like this, like being part of this, like the stream right now with Soul is so wholesome, like just enjoying it, enjoying the conversation, just really being here, despite what it is for either of us in our future, or despite what it is for content creation or whatever that is. It's just be to the audience. Just be in the moment. Sometimes be selfish. Sometimes you don't always have to be selfless. Like do things for yourself. Just breathe. Just breathe.
Really, the coziest of advice from the coziest butterfly. Thank you very much, everybody listening. Thank you very much, Zeffy, for stopping by and doing this with me. It was a lot of fun. We'll definitely have to do more stuff in the future.
Thank you for thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad I was here too.